Thank you for coming to the Where Do You Rank session. The reason for this session is we get so much feedback from customers nonstop about wanting to know kind of what do other dealers do? You know, are we as efficient as we could be in a certain part of our business? It might be inventory, it might be sales, whatever it might be, but that's just something everyone so desperately wants to know. Last year I pulled this quote directly from the feedback that was provided to us last year, and it just, you know, reconfirms everything that we know of talking to clients, is that, you know, people just want to know how other people use the system, and that sometimes you can take that away and get more out of just knowing that other people are using a certain feature or module, and that that's something that you should potentially evaluate. So, as usual, I have a million things to get through in this one session, so we will jump right into it. Just a quick little background on how this works and how we come to these numbers. We pull out all of this data for anyone who's provided us authority to do so. So I get spreadsheets and spreadsheets of data, and then I've got to go through the data and I've got to sort it, and then I've got to arrange it. And the arranging is where I'm trying to look for trends where maybe someone who uses module A and module B has a much higher number in, let's say, gross profit per activation. So I try to find correlations of people who use certain pieces of RQ and them actually having a real effect in their numbers. And then I've got to try to figure out a way to explain that without confusing everybody. That's where the challenge is. So let's just jump right into it. Let's give a quick recap of where we've kind of come since last year. So last year and the year before that, this is the third edition of this session, just so everyone knows. So I've been able to compare year over year, this being the third year. Let's just see what's going on with quick sales now really quickly. So quick sales, Summit attendees alone, is down 41%, which is huge. So a quick sale is a sale where you sell an item to nobody. So you've collected no customer information. So last year we actually introduced a new setting where you can actually restrict the ability for a phone to be sold without a customer, and the numbers prove that almost everyone turns that on. So that's really exciting from our side to see that you're actually, you know, using all of these little settings. So sales linked to quick sales went down 50%, quick sales on phones almost 50%, and it's the sale number on phones that was such a drastic drop. And that's so amazing because that means that as a whole, you're selling, you know, less money to nobody, so we're getting more customers and more customer information. So that's very good, and I'm really proud that the numbers are going down every single year. Next big thing that we talked about last year, inventory write-off. So, you know, for people who are counting their inventory last year versus this year, we've seen some change. So we actually saw the biggest change in people who are counting their inventory less than once a month. You're still writing off over $800 a month, but that's down 20% from last year, so that's really great. The biggest change in these numbers that I see is actually our customers who are counting their inventory twice a day. They're only writing off $150 a month. Now, if we think about that, you know, in the average, in the middle, and this is just Summit attendees, so this is not our whole customer base, $750 a month. So if we take that $750 a month, we drop it to $150. $150 is a phenomenally low number. That's one phone every quarter per location versus 2 or 3 phones per month per location. So I think there is complete value in counting your inventory more. I won't spend too much time on this because I know we've talked about it a lot in the previous years, but if you want to go home and run your numbers and see what your numbers are at, and this is something you want to implement as something that gets reviewed daily or weekly, the 2 reports you want to look at, if you're an executive, you look at it, the executive report. That report alone is actually a report that a lot of people don't know about. It gives you total lump sum numbers on, you know, random, you know, functionalities in RQ4. but shrinkage is one of them. So you'll see how much have you written off month to date and year to date in quantity and value. We definitely want to monitor that number. If you need the detail to support those numbers, you go to the adjustment history report. The numbers should match exactly, and if you go into the detail report, of course, we can break it down per store, per handset. If it's accessories, we can group it. You can do a lot more analysis, but the adjustment history report is a must review on a weekly basis, I would say. So, have to give shout outs on this presentation multiple times to customers who are just exceeding, the averages, and they're just doing so phenomenally well. So for inventory, I'm going to give a kudos to Wireless Communications. They've got 40 locations in South Carolina and Georgia. They're only writing off $132 a month. So it's very achievable. I had a chance to talk with their owner, Krish, last night, and he was telling me that kind of why they've been so successful and how they do it. They count their inventory twice a day with the cash in and cash out, so beginning and end. It should only take a few minutes. They've got it really down. But what they also do is every single day they include a random accessory of categories. So they don't do their accessories every day, phones twice a day, and then they randomly pick a category of accessories to count along on a daily basis. They do a full accessory count once a week, and then once a month they do an end-to-end full-on inventory. So they've just made it so efficient that they're able to get only $132 right off a month across 40 locations, and that is phenomenally low. Very, very good job, Wireless Communications. This is a new topic, RMAs. I don't think we've ever actually talked about RMAs at the summit before, and RMAs in my mind, because they've existed in RQ4 pretty much since the dawn of time, I guess the assumption was that everyone's using them and everyone knows exactly how to use them, and we're all doing it super efficiently. But then it turns out that a huge number of you don't even use the RMA module at all. So 39% don't even do any RMAs at all. RMAs, of course, our item comes back as defective, we need to go back to the vendor, ask for the credit, and then it's that whole life cycle of getting credit for that phone. So for the 40% of you who aren't using this, I want you to pay extra attention to the upcoming slides. RMAs have to be treated like cash. They should be as important to what you're monitoring as your commissions from the carrier, as the cash in your drawer. There's a lot of money sitting in stores right now that you should be getting credit back, but for some reason it doesn't look like everyone's made that a focus. Last year alone, over $170 million worth of inventory was RMA'd through RQ4. And I think about that number and how actually unrealistic it is if 40% of you aren't even using it. What's happening with all that inventory that's not even going through the system? So this number should actually be significantly higher. 22% of you in the room don't use it. The 40% is our entire customer base, but 20% of you here today don't use that module at all. For those of you attending, on average, you have $2,500 per location outstanding in RMAs that have not been received back. So that's 5 or 6 phones, and that's a lot of money sitting there outstanding per locations. When we look at our entire customer base, the number is actually way worse, $15,000 outstanding per location. But we can actually just focus on who's here today and how we can fix it. I've masked this data, obviously, but this is a real example of someone attending the summit. This company has 15 to 20 locations. They have over $100,000 in inventory sitting open on RMAs right now. And that's over $5,000 a location. So they're twice the average as far as inventory goes. And that's about 10 phones per location. So just if we need to relate that to more people, there's another company, they're between 75 and 100 locations. They have $285,000 outstanding in inventory, and that's a lot of money, and that works out to $3,000. So still a little bit above the average, but it's just such a huge amount of money that it really needs to be monitored as cash. So if you want to go into your database and you want to see what your number is, how much do you have outstanding, this is the report you want to run. It's the RMA history report. You can break it down by location, by vendor. You can look down to the product level. You can see how old they are. It's just a life cycle of RMAs, just like anything else. So definitely, this is another report we're going to put on the list of something that needs to be monitored daily. So I've got a few more things inventory-wise that we need to chat about. We're going to go into some positive news. Almost every single person at the summit uses NonSellable. That's awesome, because last year, I don't remember the exact number, but it was close to half of you that weren't using it. So really great that almost all of you are using NonSellable. We've got an average of just under $1,000 per location outstanding in NonSellable. That's actually a pretty hefty amount of money as well. When you think about how many locations you might have, $1,000 a location of NonSellable. So these are phones that haven't even made it onto the RMAs yet. So we need to kind of take these numbers, and they should be on RMAs. So we need to make sure that that's being done fast. Here's the problem. So almost everyone here uses NonSellable, and 65% of you don't count it. So here's the problem with that. If you're not counting your NonSellable, it's just sitting there. And even if you're counting your inventory once or twice a day, like wireless communications, all of that inventory is not being accounted for. So I don't know what the time frame would be that you would actually ever notice if that NonSellable inventory just never made an appearance on a count sheet or being adjusted out. So we have to count our NonSellable. It's a huge, huge fraud hole if we don't, because this is what happens. An employee refunds a phone and it automatically goes into NonSellable, and if I truly wanted to steal from you, what I would do is I would sell a phone and then I would refund the phone, and I just put it into NonSellable. And you'll never catch me, because that's a net zero effect on your inventory, on your sales. Doesn't actually look wrong if you were even looking at it, but I just put a whole bunch of phones in NonSellable. You're not asking me to count them, even though you're counting your other phones twice a day, so I just moved a phone into a status where you're never going to know that I took it. So if I were going to steal from you, that's how I would do it. So Wintory Console, and it says include NonSellable on count sheets. We have to turn that on. Here's the report you want to use. You want to look at the report that's our non-sellable products report. This will tell you exactly what phones or what accessories and what the value of those are that are sitting in that non-sellable status. So we need to monitor that so that we can watch for any bad scenarios, that we can watch for maybe too much non-sellable that's building up in a store. Here's my next shout out. So my next shout out, inventory related, is going to Russell Cellular. So Russell has 166 locations across the country. In their entire database of 166 locations, they have less than $40,000 outstanding on an RMA. When you do the math on that, it's less than $250. That is phenomenally low. It's incredibly low. So I talked to Russell, and Russell has a very good flow for why they're so successful here and why this is not a problem in their business. They've got qualified refunds, they've got very strict rules and expectations around how fast RMAs need to be done, what the policies at the store are, what the policies at the corporate are, and they're so extremely efficient that this is just such a fantastic number. Huge shout out and kudos to Russell Cellular on that one. Here's my favorite one, discounting. Love it.
Former NBA star Michael Jordan has put his longtime Chicago area home on the market. The residence has 9 bedrooms, more than 15 bathrooms, and 5 fireplaces. The compound, with more than 56,000 square feet of space, includes a sophisticated indoor basketball complex with a regulation-size court, specially cushioned hardwood flooring, and competition-quality lights. His famous jersey number, 23, is engraved on the gates of the more than 7-acre property, which has a tennis court, putting green, and deep-water pond. The asking price is $29 million. For the Wall Street Journal, this is Maya Pope-Chappelle.
Any guess why I decided to show you Michael Jordan's home that's for sale for $29 million?
You just bought it?
I did just buy it. The reason I showed you that video is that just Summit attendees in the last year have discounted $29 million off of the suggested retail price of your accessories. So we love to discount in this room. So here's what I did. I was working out the numbers and I saw that on average you guys are selling about 200 accessories per month per store, and we're discounting about $10,000 a year per location, which on average works out to $938. So here's where this gets funny to me. I was talking to a customer about this and I said, gosh, you barely discount anything. You know, you're just so good at it. And so we talked about why those numbers came out the way they did. And I will say that my accessory discounting numbers do not include anyone who uses a discount SKU. So if you use a discount SKU in RQ4, those numbers get even larger. So anyways, I'm talking to this guy and he says, but you know what, Stacy? I think that's completely useless. And I just don't think that you should talk about that because it could vary so much by dealer. And he was totally right. So what if he priced his accessories at $30? And then Kelly down the street priced his accessory, the exact same one, at $15. If I have mine at $30 and I discount mine to $20, and Kelly doesn't discount his at all, he discounts way less, but I still made more margin. And he was completely right. So let's look at these numbers again. I want to look at margin per accessory, not discounting per accessory, because this is more relevant and it's more universal. And I'm very thankful I talked to him because it makes total sense. So still on average, you sell 200 accessories per month per store. And the average for Summit attendees is $14.18 per accessory. Specifically, of all of you guys in the room today, here's how it breaks out. 8 of you in the room make more than $20 GP per accessory. 36 of you are in the range of 15 to 20, 46, 10 to 14, and then 15 of you in the room are making less than $9 margin on every single accessory. So here's where it gets extra interesting, because the more and more you go into these numbers, the more and more we can see good correlations. I found this one so particularly interesting because 44% of you don't use manager overrides. Overrides are a functionality that will let you have a floor price so that your stores cannot discount below a certain amount, and if they want to, they need authorization to do so. So I find that, you know, manager overrides truly can't be every single manager because then they just give it to every single employee. So whatever makes most sense for you, or whoever in your business has the authority to qualify an extra discount, is when you should use this functionality. So specifically, this is how it works out to. Of those 15 of you that are less than $9 margin, 100% of you don't use this feature. Of the guys who are making over $20 GP per accessory, only one of them doesn't, which means the rest of those guys are using manager overrides. So there's definitely a distinction between people who are using manager overrides are having a higher GP per accessory. Here's the report you guys want to go back and monitor. So you want to go see what your GP per accessory is, or a discount, I guess. We want to monitor the discount summary report. Discount summary report will tell you exactly how much you discounted on phones or accessories per location, per employee. Same things, but we definitely want to monitor how much we're discounting. What I love about the accessory topic so much is that last year when we did this presentation, only 17% of you used inventory compatibility to promote more accessories. Today, this year, 72% of you. So I love it that we can take stuff away from the summit, we can go home and we can implement it, and then we can come back the next year and see drastic increases. So that's very exciting. Like, congratulations to everyone, because that's a huge thing. I expect that next year we'll see the number go even higher. They've got a GP per accessory of $25.50. So not only are they the #1 GP per accessory attending the summit, they're the #1 by over $2. So they're very good at it. They've got 31 locations in the New York market. They've got a comp plan that really deters employees from discounting their accessories, and it's obviously paid off because they are #1 in this category. Cash refunds. I love this topic too. Love cash, and I love refunds. So I know this is not a new stat to everyone. So 1 in 36 employees were apprehended for theft from their employer in 2011. So at first I thought, well, that's not that bad. You know, 1 out of every 36 isn't super high. But then I reread that, and the number is 1 in 36 are apprehended. That's how many are caught. So I don't necessarily even want to know, how many are actually stealing that just aren't being caught. And I definitely want to be clear that I'm not trying to be negative by any means, because the employees are, they keep everyone in business, and there are definitely much more quantity of good employees than bad ones. But unfortunately, we have to monitor the bad ones. The bad ones that steal will steal $665, which is actually 6 times higher than what a shoplifter will steal from you. So the focus does really need to be on internal theft, not shoplifting. Here's the problem. We have a serious cash refunding problem. With summit attendees, we gave back $6.5 million in cash. That's a lot of cash. Here's the scenario I want everyone to pay attention to so that we can try to monitor and catch this. I've talked to a few dealers, and they've found this scenario out the hard way. And the problem is, it's really something I don't think a lot of people would ever see. And let me explain it for you. Customer walks in your store, they buy an accessory. The employee sells it, it's normal. Your return policy kicks in. In my example, let's say our return policy is 14 days. In a perfect scenario, the customer does not ever return that accessory. Story done, right? So what happens one day when we have an employee at the store and they think, I'd like to have an extra little bit of cash tonight? What I've seen happen all too often is employees who are monitoring refund days. So they wait until the very last day someone could refund something. They refund it, because then if the customer happens to walk in the store, they can say, sorry, you can't actually refund that, so they're not going to get caught that way. But they can do that refund, and now we've got a cash problem because they've just taken that cash. Here's why it's hard to catch. The reporting looks completely normal. Someone comes in and they refund something, that doesn't look wrong. You would never look at a report and pick out an accessory refund and think that looks funny, because it does look legitimately correct. It's likely within your return policy because they wait until the last day. And it likely falls into the cash refund policy. Very common practice is you give $25 or $50 cash back. Everything else is a check from corporate office. So there are always these small amounts because they are hard to catch. The problem is, if I was an employee and I wanted to take $20 cash a day, 20 days of the month, let's say, so $20, 20 days a month over a year, it's $4,800 in cash. So here's what we want to do to ensure that you can watch for this. There is nothing in RQ4 that can catch that scenario, because realistically, nothing in that scenario is wrong. We want to look for high quantities of refunds per employee. And I know that Sarah, introducing new BI tomorrow, can go into more detail on this. We also want to monitor refunds that are consistently on the last day that we can refund it. So we've got lots of reports where we can, refund summary, for example, can give you original sales date and refund date. So we want to look for trends in there, and we also want to look for trends, group that report by employee, and look for quantities. So that's unfortunately a sneaky little situation that we all need to watch for. So since we're talking about the refund summary report, I have another fun statistic for everybody. Sitting in the room today, 54% of you don't use refund codes. So a refund code is what I have in my screenshot here. It means every time you do a refund, you get a pop-up that says, why are you doing that refund? And the employee has to choose from a list that you create. What's valuable about this is when you do run those refund reports, you can actually group it. You know, why am I refunding $50,000 for defective product versus buyer's remorse versus you know, invoice fixes, whatever that might be. If you don't collect that information at point of sale, you can't report on it later, and if you can't report on it, you don't know it's a problem and you don't know it needs to be addressed. So we definitely need to take a takeaway and set up refund codes extremely fast with a very high payoff at the end of the day. What we also want to do is look at setting a cash limit. So if anyone has a policy where you can only give cash back up to, let's say, $50, $25, you can set that up in RQ4. We recently, a couple versions ago, added an attribute so that you could actually give cash back, full cash back, on the same day. So same day cash back is completely fine. Anything beyond same day, you've got your limits automated and set up in RQ to only let you give $25 in cash back. Everything else must be a check cut from corporate. And that can cut down on any big return cash problems that we might have. Since we're talking about cash, I have another. The dealer that I met has 30 locations, AT&T. Before I even get into the details of that story, let me just give you a quick extra stat. 14%, only 14% of RQ4 users use blind cash outs. Blind cash outs restrict that the employee can see how much cash they're supposed to have when they do a cash out. Okay? So here's my story. I go to visit this 31 location dealer, and we're going through the reports, and I say, how's your cash? Perfect, the owner says. Our cash outs are perfect every day. And I was like, really? Are they? Yep. I'll show you the report. Pulls up the cash out summary report. 30, perfect, 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 perfect. Every single store has a perfect cash out. Thinks it's perfect. And I was like, okay. So we talked to the finance lady. Hey, how many cash outs are perfect every single day? None. She just does it all by fixing it when it shows up in the bank wrong. She just fixes them. So she's doing all of the changes that the stores aren't doing. So I say to the owner, we should just turn that off, and we should make them have blind cash outs so they don't even know how much cash they're supposed to have, actually force them to count it, and then see what happens. And he was skeptical, but he said, fine, since you're here, let's do it. So we turned off the security setting. So the next morning I went back in, and we were like, let's look at this cash out report. We pull up the cash out report, 30 locations. Every single store was wrong. Every single store had a cash discrepancy from the previous day. The good thing about that, because I know it sounds bad to say that I was proud that every single store had a bad cash out, but it was a true cash out. They actually were forced to count their money. And what was so good about it is that the discrepancies were so minimal. 15 cents, over an extra $1 or $2, under by 25 cents. So there was nothing more than $3 or $4, but you were guaranteed that they did a real cash count, and that was huge. So since then, they've kept the setting, they think it's great, and now their finance lady doesn't have to do all of the changes manually every single day. So the moral of my story is we really want finance people to be the happiest, because when finance people are happy, your corporate office can be happy, and if corporate office is happy, the retail stores can be happy. So again, 86% of you are just letting your stores see how much cash they're supposed to have. I IQmetrics has tried really hard to make it super intuitive for stores to not even need that data, so that it should be so easy for them to count their cash. So maybe consider that we take that setting away and get a little bit more accurate on our cash counts would be great. Here's my last topic of the day, and then we can jump into question. Let's see what kind of guesses we can get. What is the most expensive liquid someone here can think of? Red Bull. Scotch, yeah, all good. All extremely expensive. Let me tell you something that's really expensive. Printer ink. In fact, it's so expensive, it's $5,500 a liter for black ink. Now, I'll tell you something really funny. I was doing this presentation for our staff in Charlotte, and all the guys in our office were like, we don't know what a liter is. So, for anyone who doesn't know what a liter is, think of a 2-liter a 2-liter soda. You cut it in half, and that's 1 liter. And I am from Canada, so I do spell color with a U, and that's how I spell liter. So our printer ink is $5,500 a liter. Isn't that insane? This number just floors me. Here's why I think it's insane. I love to shop. I love perfume. I love Chanel No. 5. It's only $3,000 a liter. If any of you guys are partying later on, want to buy me a bottle of Dom Perignon, won't be that bad because it's only $284 a liter. And if you guys don't want to buy me that and you'd rather just get a bottle of Absolute, it's only $50 a liter. But printer ink is $5,500 a liter. Why is it so expensive? So I guess it kind of has the right to be expensive. You've got to heat it really, you've got to get it really hot. You've got to put it on the paper really fast at 36,000 drops a second, and then we expect it to dry instantly. So we don't expect that out of vodka or perfume, so I guess that's why it kind of deserves to have a little bit more of a high price. So what's my point behind all of this? Why do I care so much that $5,500 a liter for black ink is something that you guys should care about?
Thermal printers.
Thermal printers. This is terrible, unfortunately. Only 1.5% of all invoices from RQ4 get emailed out of RQ4. So we're printing all of our invoices, and we're not emailing any of our invoices. Here's some breakdown on what we could be saving if we started printing less and emailing more. Last year, 61 million invoices were tendered. Of those, 900,000 were emailed. And even though 900,000 is really, that's a pretty high number, it truly is still only 1.4%. 1,350 clients. That's how many of IQmetrics clients send less than 10% of their emails by email, invoices by email, 1,300 clients. That's 1,300 unique databases send less than 10% of their emails. This one is the kicker. Only 9 customers of our entire customer base send more than 25% of their emails. So there's definitely a huge opportunity for everybody to take advantage of the emailing invoice functionality. What's funny about this is I was chatting with a client last week and I was saying, wow, you know, you email about 25% of your invoices to customers, and but it's still only 25%, but you are really, really high. So he was like, oh yeah, you know, we'll try to improve that. And he obviously went away and thought about it, and then he sent me this message, and he said he was thinking about it, and 25% just isn't good enough. So he went ahead and used our security role, which we have, to block the ability to print invoices, and he just went ahead and turned it off, and he said, we'll be at 100% by this weekend. And what was great about that is we do have a security role to block the ability to print, but we can leave the ability to refund, a print refund. So we can do invoices no, but refunds yes. So I just really liked how he was just so drastic that he just thought, let's turn it on. And that weekend is just this weekend, so love to re-pull his numbers this week and see what his stores are at, because I don't think they have any choice but to be 100%. So the moral of, I guess, everything I want to talk about today is I would be very confident that nothing I've told you today is something that you don't already know about. But I think it definitely just a reminder of functionality that exists. We see it every day. We hear the term RMA every day. Just reminders on what needs to be monitored and looked at beyond just our typical sales report. There's actually a lot of money to be made and saved in our Q4 if you knew what we needed to focus on a little bit more. So if we all went home and we just started monitoring our RMAs, and if our goal was to increase our RMAs and be like Russell Cellular and only have a couple $100 outstanding per location, you're going to save a lot of money. If we increased our GP per accessory like AT&T Product Center, there's a lot of money to be made if we made our goal, $2 higher and then go for $5. But people can do it, and they can do it successfully. If we acted like our 30 location dealer who used blind cash outs, we would have less corporate office spending time reconciling that, and all of those overages and monies just magically wouldn't exist anymore. And if we all emailed our invoices, we wouldn't have to spend $5,500 a liter on ink, and we could, buy me some perfume or something. So that's all I have for the Where Do You Rank session. So if anyone has any questions, or Kelly, if we've got any questions, let's bring them up.
Is there a setting that encourages emailing invoices without completely disabling?
Yes, so every single time you tender an invoice, a big email button shows up that says, do you want to email this? So you definitely don't need to disable it, because that is drastic. Just simply reminding staff that that button, they see it every single time they tender an invoice. I know it gets so easy to be second nature to just hit print, and when you're a creature of habit and you're doing so many quantities of sales, I understand, or I see why an employee might not always be emailing, but even if we reminded them, we can report on the dashboards how many emails are being sent. I think there's a lot of value in just reminding them that they should be emailing invoices.
Can we turn on that function for everything but quick sales? Because I think quick sales people will want the invoice, whereas if it's anything else where we have the customer's information, we email it?
Correct. There's no setting. It's as of today, it's completely all or nothing. But that is a very good idea.
Aaron, in the case where you're doing the transaction, you're tendering out, and you have the email option, in the event you don't have the customer's email, is there a way that you can put it in at that time or edit the customer and not have to back out of the transaction?
Absolutely. So if the customer has no email address and you say you want to email the invoice, and at that point you type it in, it will actually go back and reassociate that email address to the customer's profile so that you don't have to. Yep.
This might be a stupid question, but explain a little bit more on if you close it so the employee can't see the end of day. Mm-hmm. How does that make it better for the corporate office?
So here's what happens. If we tell the employee, you're supposed to have $105.30. They just say, oh, I'm supposed to have 105. They type in 105.30. But if they're not actually being forced to physically count the cash, the reality is they don't actually have 105.30. They've miscounted, they've lost some, they've gained some. So I actually deposit, let's say, $103 into the bank. So corporate or finance sees $103 show up in the bank, but then in our queue they see 105 just because they're trying to make it fast and easy. So someone at corporate has to make those adjustments every single time on every single cash out. And the other thing that's good about the blind is on the overages. So incredibly rare do I see someone that has full access to cash where the employees can see. If you ever look at your sales or your cash history, so rarely will you see that an employee has an overage in their cash out where they've got too much money. If you turned around and looked at the reports for someone who has that blind, they always have overages. So they always have an extra couple bucks, $5, couple cents, whatever it might be, but they just never have that opportunity to see that they're not expected to have that cash.
This is more towards the refund of phones. Is there any way to, with the current change in the policy, with AT&T particular return policy, is there any way to put a restocking fees limited to only buyers or remote phones and not to any other devices?
Not. No, the restocking fee. However, here's my thoughts on the buyer's remorse for AT&T. We automatically put a restocking fee on the invoice. In a scenario where you know, AT&T has the rules on when that fee gets reimbursed to you or when we can waive it and not expect it. I don't know the exact rules, but there's very minimal visibility today in that. So what we can do is you can actually have a credit SKU if you want, and you can put that credit SKU on the invoice, that credit SKU requiring the IMEI of the phone, so that at minimum you have a list of every IMEI that you waived that fee on. The alternative is you just simply remove the restocking fee or add it in whatever scenario. Just kind of depends on what type of end result do you want and what kind of reporting do you need and what kind of reporting do you need to provide AT&T at the end of the day.
Hey Stacy, I have a question regarding the emails.
Yes.
We use thermal printers, and on the back of it we have pre-printed with a lot of our legal disclaimers that we want. Is there a way of putting that on the emails so it's pre-done?
We can have canned emails, definitely, so you can create a bunch of canned emails. However, today it doesn't automatically add it. The employee does have to say, add that canned email. So as long as you had the email sitting there for them to add, it is add email, they choose it, it's added, but it is not automatic today. I've seen a lot of people get really creative with the email options that they give their staff. So that exact scenario would be really great to have as an option for them to send. But I've also seen people have emails created for a new model of handset that comes out. They have an email saying, hey, here's our website, or we're having a training, or whatever the case may be, and they throw that onto the email as well. But it is, you do have to manually choose it.
Hey, Stacy, the gentleman that was turning off printing out the invoices, was he capturing the signatures for credit cards electronically?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And I am a big fan of the blind cash out. We actually narrowed down a theft issue using that. So.
Awesome. That's good. We all want to be him. Here's a mic.
Point that out to me with the blind cash out, and the cash out lady is now driving a late model used Mercedes with the money we saved.
This is the gentleman who I went and visited, by the way. It's his story. I'm glad to hear that. That's awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. I'll be around if we want to jump into any questions. Oh, no, Kelly has one more. Sorry.
One more, sorry.
Sorry.
I'm just slow.
I'm sorry, just a quick question. When we do email the invoices from RQ, can we add attachments like the contract?
You can add attachments from your computer, absolutely. So as long as that contract was on the computer, you can attach it. Yep. Thank you guys so much.